devotionals, free resources, and messages that speak directly to what you're facing. Whether you need encouragement, clarity, or a moment to reconnect with God, it's all right at your fingertips. Discover a place to grow your faith and find real hope at intouch.org.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
This hour of The Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
Every day is history in your own life, in your own family, in your community, and in the country. For today, examples, the stock market, the Dow Jones, history, highest close ever. The rebound in the economy, Donald Trump threading the needle, privatization. Yet, in some areas, it's this moron philosophy of nothingness.
Here's how it will work. Once a month, our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line.
See, but that is a gimmick. It's a gimmick. It's a bankruptcy. It's a failure. Who pays? The boogeyman? My next guest knows it all too well. You see, he's a doctor of economics. Although he looks like a movie star or a model out of GQ, he's Vincent Price lookalike Dr. E.J. Antoni. How's that work, Doc?
That sounds like a big bill for the taxpayers. What it sounds like, right?
So I just want to understand this. So I'm sitting there, you're sitting there. We get a couple of guys who earned their way, made their money, and they're asked to finance something, and they say, what we're going to do is we're going to sell these things at a 30% loss, no questions asked. Are you in? What moron would sign up for this?
Maybe the guy who doesn't actually have to foot the bill, right? I mean, that's the whole thing here. Whenever we talk, Shaun, about, and I know you know this, but we talk about government losses or the government paying for something. Those are all just euphemisms. When it comes to the financial reality, the fact of the matter is, the government doesn't have any money, taxpayers have money. And so the government doesn't take a loss, taxpayers take a loss. And let's look at what they're doing right now with these grocery stores. You're talking about an industry where the margins are going to be something around 2%. And that's in the case of a well-run, profitable grocery store. So these are paper-thin margins, right? You're talking about selling things 30% off, so basically roughly a 28% loss. Are you kidding me? That's absolutely insane. And that's just the first problem with this whole scam.
How is he authorized to do this? Where does he have the power to guarantee this kind of loss for the people who underwrite government? I'm serious. This is so perplexing to me that this child, this intellectual midget, and this is sweeping the country, whether you talk about Love You Hong Time, who's going to be the next governor of Wisconsin or not. This is sweeping the country. Where in our government credo do they have the ability to guarantee a loss for the people who do not partake in their schemes? How can they do this?
Well, unfortunately, Shaun, believe it or not, they have handed over a lot of authority, which sounds insane, but I'm not advocating for it. I'm not trying to defend it or justify it or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is he has a whole heck of a lot of leeway here to do these kinds of crazy scams, which is a shame because, again, you're going to cost the taxpayer millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in a city that's already running in the red. And again, that idea of losing 28 cents on the dollar, I mean, that's kind of a best case scenario because, again, you're talking about profitable, well-run grocery stores with that 2% margin, like a Walmart or a Gristedes is a big one up in New York. But if you're talking about a government-run store, as you know, Shaun, you're already talking about an enterprise that is going to be inefficiently run and is probably going to be deeply in the red, even if they weren't trying to have this 30% off nonsense.
So I was doing that thing that is a curse among people with the ability to do it called thinking. And I did some research in just Chicago, which is very similar to New York. In fact, I think they're more brazen in their financial crime and fraud. And the people who are running for mayor, all Democrats but one girl who gets no attention and has no shot. Sorry, but it's true. When you look at the reality of who populates these areas, the similarities are undeniable. For instance, in New York, O'Keefe Media Group found out that SNAP benefits, as it's called now commonly, as I like to refer to it, as food stamps for the people who couldn't have cash, are being used to buy dope, this cretin, whatever dope it is. It's like a hybrid marijuana. When you look at the amount of people now in the country that took over tobacco, cigarette use, the number one product used by American citizens, specifically, not exclusively, but heavily concentrated in Democrat areas, it's dope, meaning marijuana. Yet the vast majority of these people are on government sustenance. So they're not buying the dope. The people are buying the dope. When you look at the numbers and the breakdown, Illinois gets $4.5 billion a year, billion with a B, in just food stamps from the federal government. The concentrated area, the most concentrated area in all of Illinois is Chicago. 1.5 billion with a B goes into just Chicago. Chicago is losing stores left, right, and center. Now, how can that math work out? And the answer is it doesn't. So the vast majority of the recipients of SNAP, they aren't using it to buy food. They're selling it to buy dope. They sell it for 30 cents on the dollar, or they misuse it like New Yorkers. They take the food stamps and they buy the creatine, because if it's going on in New York, times it by 10 and it's going on in Illinois, times it by 50 and it's going on in Cali. So this is just the reality of how the system is being frauded over and over again. The government came out with the stat that the Medicaid expansion of Obamacare, the 20 million that have been expanded and included in Medicare, more than half are illegitimate. Vast majority of those that are illegitimate are illegal aliens. Ultimately, the adults should take control outside of the great areas not run by Democrats. How does it end, EJ, when you look at these numbers? The vast majority of what's bankrupting us is fraud. Do we not have the ability to govern the areas that cannot govern themselves? Should these areas not be up for elections? They should be seized and put into receivership. Let's show them how to do things. What do you say?
You're talking about a whole lot of the country, if that's the case. If the bar is, if the bar to govern is that you must do so efficiently, I don't think there's many people.
Well, you have to do it.
That part, but
if it's a business, if it's a stock bit, if it's a business and they're perpetrating financial crimes, and the information and the data proves beyond the shadow of a doubt, we've done this before, whether it's Enron or Lucent or mortgage companies or whatever the case is. This is perpetual fraud with no end in sight, as there are 12 scallywag fraud Democrats running for mayor of Chicago. And look at what's going on in the governor's race and the rest of it. They cannot govern themselves any more than cartel members can be made prison guards.
Well, Shaun, to your point on the scale of the fraud here, there are a lot of different agencies that have tried to do, essentially independent audits of programs like food stamps or SNAP, whatever the heck we call it these days. And it's not uncommon that you find estimates exceeding 50% of suspected fraud, because you're right, you do have this whole phenomenon of people selling their food stamps for cents on the dollar to drug dealers, and it doesn't have to be illicit drugs. It could even just be people are doing it to get alcohol. It could be a perfectly legal product, but something that they're not able to use the food stamps for. So yes, the program is just absolutely rife with all kinds of fraud, and it goes to show you that whenever government starts doing something that it has no business doing, it never does it well. Government struggles to do well the things that it is supposed to do, like protect us militarily on the world stage, right? the defense budget is notorious for how bloated it is and how inefficient it is and all the problems with it. But that's just, that's even in the case of, again, something that most people agree that government has a responsibility to do, that they should be involved in. And then you get into something like food stamps, where the government has no business being involved in that. This is what we have private charities for. This is why people can go to a church and get food and not be turned away, and they'll be taken care of. Again, when government starts to do something that it has no business doing, it is going to be terribly inefficient at it. It's going to be very wasteful, and there will be some very negative knock-on effects. And that's exactly what we're seeing here, where taxpayer dollars are being used to support all kinds of nefarious activity, including the hardcore drug industry.
Well, listen, the other thing, too, is that it's a designed bankruptcy law. It's designed to fail in this manner. And most people do not understand the kind of money that these Democrat-run areas, these Democrat-run mafia-controlled states and counties and cities, what they really cost all of us. And you and I talk repeatedly about the national debt and the mass explosion since Barack Obama had become president. It's unbelievable. But they found new ways to funnel money into these areas. One of the most astonishing realities, I was shocked by this myself, the federal grant program. The federal grant program is $1.13 trillion a year with a 3% written-in increase. Just grants. Now, the information is out. 90%, 70% of grants, they can't tell you where the money is. They don't have any idea of grant money. If you look at the federal money that flows into these Democrat cities and states, like let's just take Illinois because I know the numbers. Illinois gets $43 billion in reimbursements of welfare. It gets $47 billion in grants. So you're talking about $90 billion coming into one state that has a budget of 56, and it's a record, and they're telling you they balance budgets based on loans. There's no revenue. The people are leaving. If you can compartmentalize this thievery, spread it throughout the country, and put it into money kickback schemes of policies that turn right back up into politician coffers, how does it end? How does it end if you can't get the right info out of this nonsense?
Well, Shaun, what you just described is the basic business plan of an NGO, right? These non-government organizations, which is such a misnomer because they can't survive without government money. So how are you a non-government organization then? But whatever the case, that's what they're called. What the Trump administration has been doing, and this is something I really think they deserve a lot of credit for, and they haven't been given enough, is the way in which they have been stripping federal dollars out of these crazy left-wing NGOs who have been doing, again, exactly what you just described. They've been taking all of this taxpayer money and funneling it to these special interest groups via things like grants, and the groups never actually are really doing what they say they're doing. In other words, they get a grant for something to like help low-income folks in the community, and this NGO that gets all the money somehow is paying all these executives and administrators and other employees a ton of money. And then if you look at where the money is actually being spent outside of compensation packages, you find that there's donations to politicians, or you find there's donations to other organizations that are supposed to, at least in name, be helping the poor or be helping the needy. And instead, those organizations are the one making donations to Democrat campaign coffers. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And when you say that, you think to yourself, how on earth is any of this legal? Because it sounds, as soon as you articulate how these business models work, and they are a business, you think to yourself, this sounds so incredibly illegal, and yet this is what has been legalized and what has been done for many, many years in this country, and it has gotten worse and worse, and it did get significantly worse under the Biden administration, and now the Trump administration is starting to put a stop to a lot of it. That's why USAID was such a big scandal. When DOJ started discovering all of the crazy ways in which they were wasting money and in which they were essentially laundering money in a lot of instances internationally. And look, I don't say any of this lightly. I'm not throwing these terms around lightly, like money laundering or fraud or the rest of it, because these are very, very serious issues. And if you don't have evidence for them, then those are not accusations you should be making willy-nilly. But the fact is, Doge produced the receipts, and it's why USAID had to be shut down and why they had to be defunded, because they were engaging in all of these crazy schemes where they were essentially stealing taxpayer money and giving it to certain politicians. And it's no coincidence that those politicians were all of the same ilk.
Well, so the Hornswoggler's back, and she's on tour. And it's funny you mentioned USAID. It's how she started her talk. I want you to hear this.
It's so unbelievable that they got rid of USAID. And you saw the recent numbers. As many as 600, 700,000 people have died because of withdrawing American aid.
Now, that's how they'll sell it to morons that are still thinking this is a political party. But it's, you know what else is fascinating when you really dive into where all of this money went? Did you know there's a country music DJ, he's very famous out of Nashville, and he took to the airwaves to combat this.
Well, here's an interesting little factoid. Ever since USAID was defunded, rap music has fallen from the top of the music charts in America, being replaced by country. Good old America-loving country music has dominated the U.S. music charts for 40 weeks straight, even with Ella Langley and Choosing Texas now dethroning Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey for the longest time at number one.
So USAID money was going into promoting rap music and financing ridiculous loans and grants to these rap artists around the country promoting the kind of agenda that was in rap music. I mean, it's amazing how meticulous the communists in our country who were laying wait had orchestrated the fraud of USAID and so many of the other programs in the country. And Trump administration knows it. If only it could get press out of the decent people who exist in this country, because let's face it, if you listen to my show, if you listen to this station, Salem in general, if you watch the news station Varney and Newsmax and some of the other news things that have the decent people, you're informed. But that's a small minority. We are the people that pay the taxes, that go to work, that play by the rules. So they've kind of got the information sequestered from the people in general to realize not only do you not pay taxes, you're a useful idiot that still thinks this is a political party versus a money laundering scheme. As I see it, the Democrat Party as it exists is an organized syndicate, isn't it?
Certainly feels that way, doesn't it? Again, Shaun, you look, just follow the money, right? At the end of the day, that's what it's about. Follow the money. And when you do that, again, what you find is that so much of the supposed support for left-wing ideology, for socialism, for communism, for the radical left that's out there, so much of it is not, it's not natural. I mean that in the sense of a lot of it's astroturfed. There's a Tesla dealership not terribly far from me and from where I live. And what's amazing is that every single weekend now for months, they have protesters there. They all show up at the same time. Sometimes they all get off the same bus together. And at the same time, they all decide to go home. And guess what? Would you believe it? That they're all paid. They get about $50 an hour. And they come, they show up, they hold a bunch of signs, and then they leave. That's not natural. Again, it's completely astroturfed. Were it not for all of this money, and whether it's private money or whether it's again laundered taxpayer dollars, were it not for all of these different financing mechanisms, there would be no ground support for so crazy an ideology as something that tells you you don't get to keep the money that you earn, and your little girl can become a boy, or worse yet, your little girl has to change in the locker room with grown men. I mean, who on earth could support so crazy an ideology as the modern left in the United States? And again, I think the reason for that is because You have a lot of the media that is completely captured financially by the left wing. You have all of these protests and different things that are funded by the left wing. You have an American education system that, once more, is captured by the left wing. And were it not for all of this institutional support that kind of has socialism on life support in the United States, I think it probably would die off, or at least be reduced to the point where it really would not be a political contender the way it is today.
So the other thing, too, is that you look at what's happening when they do catch the fraudsters. Minnesota, they are now reducing their sentences to where they're not even showing up as felonies. The Somalian pirates and fraudsters that were in on the skim, they're getting the felony convictions overturned or thrown out or expunged from their record. And, it's still going on tremendously. This Ayanna Pressley, this is something where if you can't hang your hat on the fact that her husband received $2 billion in a fraud contract, you heard the story, correct?
Oh, dear goodness, yes.
I mean, this is out of the closet, complete and utter fraud, cannot exist in the real world. I want to bring the listeners up to speed here.
This squad member is having a very bad, no good week. Ayanna Pressley's husband miraculously got the winning bid on a $2 billion contract in Massachusetts, and the corruption stinks to high heaven. A couple of weeks ago, the state awarded Presley's husband and his associates a $2 billion contract to build and run a courthouse, which they are then going to rent back to the state for 40 years.
Now, his qualifications are he's a convict. He's a legitimate convict, sentenced to 10 years. He's an old-time street gangster, as Ayanna Pressley still goes out and sells the nonsense that somehow she's fighting for the people.
It's unconscionable, it's unjust that this for-profit system, again, is for childhood trauma, is for child abuse, is for child neglect, is for medical negligence, is for the violation of human rights, of constitutional rights. Core Civic is getting rich off of and profiting off of the pain of these families who just want to be back in community, working their jobs that they take pride in. So Dilley needs to be shut down. We need you to join our calls for the Dilley Detention Facility to be shut down and to abolish ICE, this rogue, racist agency that is far beyond reform.
So the idea that the government pays a facility to house and take care of while the illegal alien is being adjudicated, his citizenship is requested, and the rest of it, that's for profit. But her husband receiving a $2 billion contract is not. And the reality is, if you're still going to vote for this, there are only two excuses: you're a moron, or you're making money like this. And that's what we're combating. And I'm wondering how you think we can best eliminate the liability and the cost of this kind of corruption if we aren't willing to prosecute the obvious thief and fraud of a congresswoman's husband. Then it's all lost, isn't it?
Well, Shaun, this is why shows like yours are so important, and it's why I'm so grateful that I get to come on as frequently as I do, and why I'm so looking forward to Shaun Fest, by the way. It's fact that education is key here, right? I'm a big believer that the success of DOGE was entirely dependent on the fact that it educated people. It showed everybody definitively, yes, there are dead people getting Social Security checks. It demonstrated for folks, I mean, how many people, I certainly didn't, how many people knew about the fact that government retirement paperwork for workers is processed in a mine that's literally underground in southern Pennsylvania? I mean, this stuff is insane the way it all works. So, when people don't know this stuff about Presley's husband, when they don't know about another one of the squad members who had the fake winery that they were using, right? They were making money off of that.
Ileana Omar, with the laundry on her head. Yeah.
Exactly. Omar was. So when people don't know about this stuff, they can't be outraged by it, and nothing will change. So educating our fellows is what's so important today. Waking everybody up to how bad these problems are, because that's the only way things are going to change. If the electorate knows what's going on, ostensibly in their name, and how their tax dollars are being spent, when people know, then they can be outraged, and then they can exert the right kind of political pressure that will actually change the country for the better.
So Tim Walz was rooting against Tesla stock when it was $218. It's now $322. When I watched Jim Cramer and the market collapse the 1,100 points under the federal actions or inactions or short sellers or corruption, he said the market was going to go down. So I like to always fade the morons out there. When the market hits a new high and the dollar hits a new high and the Treasury says we're going to buy some yen, am I buying yen, buying gold, and buying the market? What do you think?
Oh, goodness. It's a little scary, Shaun. I'm not going to lie. When you see this kind of currency intervention, there's a lot of different reasons for why we're in the position we are. But
I'm buying yen.
Times.
I'm buying yen. I'm buying a condo in Japan. Are you nuts? The way they handled the Islamo-Nazi problem. But I'm always going to look at Heritage Foundation and what Dr. E.J. Antoni has to say. Now, I'm going to talk to you between now and then, but I can't wait to see you and smoke a cigar with you, you handsome devil, okay?
Shaun, the pleasure will be all mine.
We'll see you soon. Thank you very much. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
Marxists, socialists, and communists are not welcome on the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
You need a construction company, but who?